That's all right. Oh. All right, great. Okay. Well, hello again. Thank you for joining us at the Rector's Forum. Our topic is still exploring the Enneagram, and it will be for several more weeks, as this is a system of 9 different types. So we are just now going to the type 2 today, and we will go the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, the 7, and then the 8. And then I believe we'll have a break on November 1st, All Saints, and then we'll finish up on November 8th with the type 9 and the wrap-up. So today, week before last, we talked about the 1, the perfectionist. This week, we turn our attention to the 2, the giver or the helper. Do you know the Shel Silverstein book, The Giving Tree? Yeah, that's a 2. Solid 2, right there. Here is how Helen Palmer describes the 2. And this again is in her book, The Enneagram, Understanding Yourself and the Others in Your Life. And I do commend this Enneagram study because I think it's been really good for my marriage several times. I think it's good in work relationships. Now, we don't want to go around telling people their types, as I said before, but if you can pick up on some basic patterns and your reactions to those patterns, then I think the system can be very helpful. Like, okay, there is much grace and forgiveness in thinking this other person is being a 7, or this person is being a 6 right now. And so I don't need to just ate it up in here and be combative or whatever. So there's much wisdom in knowing yourself, but there's a little bit of wisdom in knowing other people as well. So Helen Palmer describes the 2 as such. 2s move toward people, as if seeking an answer to the inner question, will I be liked? They have a marked need for affection and approval. They want to be loved, to be protected, and to feel important in other people's lives. These were children who earned love and security by meeting other people's needs. As one outgrowth of their search for approval, 2s develop an exquisite personal radar for the detection of moods and preferences. Givers, that's what Palmer calls the 2, givers say that they adapt their feelings to suit the concerns of others, and that by adapting, they are able to ensure their own popularity. They also report that if they are not getting the approval that they need, that the adapting habit can become compulsive, to the point where they forget their own needs in a driven attempt to flatter others as a way of buying love. 2s believe that others look to them for special qualities of understanding, and that family and friends are dependent upon the help that they give. If their efforts are not recognized or approval is withheld, 2s feel punctured, as if their worth depended on how they stood in other people's eyes. A pat of approval inflates self-importance. They couldn't have pulled it off without me. A disdainful look from someone important produces painful feelings of deflation. I've got to get that person to like me again. So, okay, my nose, every time I get in front of the camera, my nose is just itching me to death. I don't think it's a nervous habit. Maybe just the scratchy mask being on. Okay, so let's dive into Rizzo and Hudson's work on the 2. Once again, I remind you of 3 points. The basic fear of the 2 is of being unloved and unwanted for themselves alone. The basic desire of the 2 is to feel loved. The superego, or the false self message is, you are good or okay if you are loved by others and are close to them. Rizzo and Hudson write, we have named personality type 2 the helper because people of this type are either the most genuinely helpful to other people, or, when they are less healthy, the most highly invested in seeing themselves as helpful. Being generous and going out of their way for others makes 2s feel that theirs is the richest, most meaningful way to live. The love and concern they feel and the genuine good they do warms their hearts and makes them feel worthwhile. 2s are most interested in what they feel to be the really, really good things in life. Love, closeness, sharing, family, and friendship. Now, what 2s don't always realize, in my experience, is that these might not be what other people feel are the really, really good things in life. So there's where tension arises. Rizzo and Hudson continue. When 2s are healthy and in balance, they really are loving, helpful, generous, and considerate. People are drawn to them like bees to honey. Healthy 2s warm others in the glow of their hearts. They enliven others with their appreciation and attention, helping people to see positive qualities in themselves that they had not previously recognized. In short, healthy 2s are the embodiment of the good parent that everyone wishes they had. Someone who sees them as they are, understands them with infinite compassion, helps and encourages with infinite patience, and is always willing to lend a hand, while knowing precisely how and when to let go. Here comes the however. Have I mentioned that the psychologist who did my extensive exam for the priesthood used that word a lot in his written report, along with unfortunately, but I still passed. So, if you were a 2, brace yourself. Rizzo and Hudson write, however, 2's inner development may be limited by their shadow side, pride, self-deception, the tendency to become over-involved in the lives of others, and the tendency to manipulate others to get their own emotional needs met. Essentially, the dark work that we must all do, sitting with things that we don't like about ourselves, is very difficult for 2s who tend to only see themselves in a positive light. There's a possible 2 in my life who is known to scream, I'm a good mother. There needs to be a little more reflection on that person's part. Rizzo and Hudson note that 2s, 3s, and 4s all must face their underlying fear of worthlessness. Rizzo and Hudson continue, in the average to unhealthy levels, 2s present a false image of being completely generous and unselfish and of not wanting any kind of payoff for themselves, when in fact they can have enormous expectations and unacknowledged emotional needs. Average to unhealthy 2s seek validation of their worth by obeying their superego's demands to sacrifice themselves for others. They believe they must always put others first and be loving and unselfish if they want to get love. The problem is that putting others first makes 2s secretly angry and resentful, feelings they work hard to repress or deny. But you know what happens to repressed feelings and emotions, right? They eventually come out one way or another. So let's talk about the 2's childhood. Should be interesting. Rizzo and Hudson write, During their childhood, twos come to believe three things. First, that they must put other people's needs ahead of their own. Second, that they must give in order to get. And third, that they must earn a place in the affections of others because love will not simply be given to them. So the two child learns to set aside their own needs, especially if they are in a more dysfunctional setting, and focus on the needs of others. The twos are the ones helping siblings do their homework, taking care of their parents in various ways. You can see how this would lead to overfunctioning if your parents were alcoholics or addicts or suffered from mental illness, right? I found one line in particular on the childhood of twos particularly tragic. Quote, "They are deeply conditioned to believe that by sacrificing themselves, they will be rewarded with whatever is called love in their family system." Twos, as they repress their own needs and emotions, become more drawn to the needs and emotions of others. Rizzo and Hudson write, on a deep psychological level, twos are trying to fix in others the hurts they are unable to fully acknowledge in themselves. You could see how that would be a problem. Rizzo and Hudson write, given this inner dynamic, twos learn to deal with their negative feelings by focusing on others, trying hard to please and help them. However, the more dysfunctional their background, the more they will expect rejection, and the more desperate they will be to elicit a positive response. Ultimately, they will do almost anything to get some sign, some token that they are loved. So let's talk about wings. Remember that each type on the Enneagram has a subtype based on the number on either side of it. With twos, that means you encounter a 1 wing or a 3 wing, because it's 1, 2, 3. The 2 with the 1 wing is called the servant. Healthy people in this range are focused on service. In the words of Rizzo and Hudson, they are, quote, willing to take on thankless and unglamorous tasks that others generally avoid. They are more serious than twos with a 3 wing, and are often the more overt caretakers, finding themselves in careers like teacher, minister, the healthcare field, etc. People in the average level of this type are dutiful, proper, and severe with themselves. They are not as overtly emotional because they don't wish to draw attention to themselves. Rizzo and Hudson write, twos with a 1 wing feel conflicts between their emotional needs and their principles, often leading them to get involved in moral or religious teaching. They can become extremely self-critical and neglectful of their health, denying their personal needs and tending to play the martyr. Some examples of this subtype: Mother Teresa, Eleanor Roosevelt, Desmond Tutu, Danny Thomas, Ann Landers, Barbara Bush, Lewis Carroll, Florence Nightingale, and Albert Schweitzer. The other subtype of the 2 with a 3 wing is called the host or hostess. I wonder what this one is like. About the healthy people of this subtype, Rizzo and Hudson write, they are sociable and talkative, charming and adaptable, with much personality and evidence. They enjoy bestowing whatever talents and resources they possess on friends and family, cooking, entertaining, singing, and listening, all ways of sharing their inner bounty. Average people of this subtype are a bit more focused and ambitious, though still friendly. They are not overt caretakers. Rizzo and Hudson write, there can be a seductive aspect to people of this subtype, as well as more of a focus on relationships, excessive friendliness, exaggerated sentimentality, and histrionic displays. The result of the 3's desire for acceptance, blending with the 2's drive for intimacy. Less serious and more task-driven than 2's with the 1 wing, they are also less likely to engage in self-questioning and self-criticism. People of this subtype are direct about what they want, drawing attention to the services they provide. They can be self-important, high-handed, and sometimes arrogant. Some examples of this subtype: Luciano Pavarotti, Sammy Davis Jr., Sally Jesse Raphael. Does anybody remember her? Arsenio Hall. That's another one of those people who disappeared. Ann Mira. I don't know. Jack Parr. Ann Jackson. Delta Burke. Merv Griffin. John Denver. It's quite an assorted list of people. There's usually a better list on the Enneagram Institute of people, but they're all, all clumped together. I have seen Dolly Parton appear on list of 2's. So now we'll talk once again about the instinctual variance. Remember the week before last when we talked about instinctual variance? So in addition to the wings, we find 3 instinctual variants among types: self-preservation, social, and sexual. As you can imagine, the self-preservation instinctual variant presents problems for a 2. So you find a 2 with this variant repressing their own self-preservation instincts while taking care of others. About this variant, Rizzo and Hudson write, they are the instinctual variant most likely to wear themselves out for people while ignoring their own needs, often failing to get adequate rest or time for themselves. They often enjoy cooking or entertaining, but they may not eat well themselves or allow themselves to enjoy the events that they host. They can become martyrs because while they never say it, they expect others to take care of their self-preservation needs. As they disintegrate, they begin taking more pride in how they sacrifice for others and begin to feel entitled to indulge themselves as compensation for their suffering. Rizzo and Hudson write, denial of their problems alternate with complaints. Either, I don't need help, or nobody notices my needs. They increasingly rely on emotional manipulation of others, guilt trips to get their needs met. In the unhealthy range, self-preservation 2s become trapped in delusional self-importance and gross neglect or abuse of their own physical well-being. Obsessions with food and with medical symptoms and syndromes are common, as are somatic disorders and hypochondria. The social instinct in the 2 shows itself as the tendency to be everybody's friend. These types could be mistaken for 7s because they keep a busy social calendar, always introducing people, networking, and the like. Rizzo and Hudson write, they like being the hub, the center of their social arena. Social 2s have a strong need to be noticed, to be remembered by people, and are driven by fears of being left out or overlooked. I don't think this next part was supposed to be comical, but that's how it struck me. Rizzo and Hudson write, If they are insecure about their social desirability, they may cultivate talents to enhance their value and have more to offer. For example, being psychic. They attempt to impress people by dispensing advice, be it spiritual, financial, or medical, but also by name dropping. This might get them into trouble, though, when they go spilling somebody else's tea, so to speak. So I have this juicy piece of gossip about the dean of the cathedral. I don't, but that's getting into that mindset. Don't call me. And don't call the bishop. At the unhealthy levels, they can be insufferable, always calling attention to their good deeds. Or on the other hand, they may be classic enablers, covering up for the misdeeds of the chosen people in their lives. Finally, the sexual instinct in the two. These are the twos that can become stalkers. Riso and Hudson write, if social twos want to be everybody's friend, sexual twos want to be one person's best friend. They focus on a few individuals and like to see themselves as their friend's number one intimate, their closest confidant. I'm your number one fan. Think of the movie Misery, for example. Dirty Birds. Riso and Hudson. What's that? Yeah, the stalkers, and stalkers that don't say cuss words. It can be really, I don't know. I have a two in my life that will spell out, Mason said S-H-I-T. I don't know. I don't make these things up. They're just the patterns. But Riso and Hudson continue. They may begin to obsess about the other, compulsively checking in, unable to accept rejection or even inadequate responses from the object of their desire. They may stalk the person they are romantically obsessed with or prey on those who cannot refuse their overtures. Now, with that being said, since we're really getting into the unhealthy areas, I have this chart of the healthy to unhealthy levels in the two, just like the one I read. Just so you know, I'm not picking on twos. Everybody gets their chart read. So this is the twos chart. Yeah, it's a lot of writing. Let me get some more tea here.
While you're drinking, Jalen commented and said, when you were talking about the self-preservation too, especially if a sibling has a chronic illness or someone in the family needs all that.
Yeah, they become the helpers in the family, and the little mini, it's just classic codependency. You've got to help. You've got to. If I can just help Daddy drink less, or if I can just fill in and do this, then I will be loved. Yeah. But it comes from that place of needing love. Anybody can be an enabler, but for an aid, it would come from a different place than a two. It'd be like, I've got to project a strong image, so I can't have weak people in my life, so I got to cover this up. For a 6, it would be based in anxiety of some kind, anxiety to maybe be in control of the situation. So what the Enneagram looks at is our root motivations. So we can get caught up in some of these surface things, but it's deeper than that. So here are so this goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, from healthy at a level 1, nobody's there, down into the level 9, the deepest depths of depravity of the Enneagram. So at level 1, they're self-nurturing, unconditionally loving, Twos let go of the belief that they are not allowed to care for themselves. Thus, they can own their feelings and needs and are free to love others without expectations. They also achieve their basic desire, and liberated twos experience unconditional love for self and others. They are joyous, gracious, and humble. I don't know that I've met any of those. Level 2, empathetic, caring. Twos focus on the feelings of others with loving concern as a defense against their basic fear. Their self-image is, I am loving, thoughtful, and selfless. Level 3. Now these are all healthy. These, we're still in the healthy levels here. Supportive giving. Twos reinforce their self-image by doing good things for others. They are generous with their time and energy and are appreciative, encouraging, and supportive of others. They are also emotionally expressive and enjoy sharing their talents with others. Now we're getting into the average levels. Level 4, well-intentioned people-pleasing. Twos begin to fear that whatever they have been doing is not enough. Others do not really want them around. They want to be closer to others and to be reassured that others like them. Twos try to cultivate friendships and win people over by pleasing, flattering, and supporting them. Level 5, possessive, intrusive. This is where we get into the family analysis. Twos worry that the people they love will love someone else more than them, so they want to be needed. They attempt to have a claim on people by putting the needs of others before their own. Proud but needy, they do not want to let the others out of their sight. And at level 6, the lowest level of average, self-important, overbearing. Twos are angry that others are taking them for granted but are unable to freely express their hurt. Instead, they complain about their health, draw attention to their good deeds, and remind others of how much they owe them. Repressed feelings begin to cause physical problems. Level 7, self-justifying and manipulative. This is in the unhealthy levels now. Twos fear that they are driving people away, and this may be true. To save their self-image, they rationalize their behavior by seeing others as selfish ingrates. They try to elicit pity as a substitute for love, and keep others dependent on them to prevent them from leaving. Level 8, entitled and coercive. Twos have become so desperate for love that they begin to pursue it obsessively. They feel they are entitled to whatever they want because they have suffered so much. And they may act out their need for affection recklessly and inappropriately. So this is the 2 that gets in the tawdry affair. Level 9, the very lowest level of unhealth. The realization that they may have been selfish or even have harmed others is too much for unhealthy twos. They fall to pieces physically and emotionally, playing out the role of victim and martyr. Others are then obliged to step in and take care of them. So those are our levels of health. Doesn't sound too good to keep slipping down the ladder. So that's why we have red flags and things built into the Enneagram system. The wake-up call for the 2. So the wake-up call for each type is kind of the your signal for awareness that you are enamored of your type. This is the signifying behavior that lets you know, okay, my personality is behind the wheel rather than me being behind the wheel. So the wake-up call for the 2, how the 2 knows that they're being caught up in personality instead of essence, is people-pleasing. Rizzo and Hudson write, people-pleasing can take many forms, from a forced friendliness, to being overly solicitous of others' welfare, to being too generous, to flattering others shamelessly. So those are some warning signs for a 2. Now, before we get into the areas of stress and growth, I want to do for you what I did for the 1s, and that is just read some of the elements that I've underlined in this book that resonated with me and might resonate with you. So quotations, these are all quotations about 2s at various levels. 2s also put a lot of energy into finding ways of having more to bring to others by pursuing such interests as spirituality within their own religious tradition, tarot card reading, massage, energetic healing, nutritional information, cooking, childcare information, and oh boy, my sister gets a lot of that from a 2 in her life, and it's not me because I'm not a 2, but childcare information is just free-flowing. And there's not even an awareness of it. It's just, I was reading this magazine in school child journal or something, and it said that children shouldn't be afraid of loud noises, Like, shut it down. And crafts are hallways of being of service. Iola Boylan, maybe, from Mama's family. Being of service and of making people feel good about themselves and about the 2. 2s feel that if they have some kind of spiritual power or gift, reading auras or giving others the sacraments, for instance, then others will always want them. When the ego attempts to see itself as the source of love and value in others' lives, the result is pride, the passion or capital sin of the 2. If it weren't for me, where would you be? Pride often expresses itself in forms of flattery. 2s in the sway of pride feel compelled to offer compliments to others, but with the unconscious desire that such positive attention will be returned to them. If the other person has chosen to express their love in a way other than the 2's term of endearment, it does not count. In effect, 2s unconsciously judge the responses of others, and only a few select actions get through their superego filter. Further, the more rejected 2s feel as a result of childhood problems, the more difficult it will be for them to be convinced that anyone really does love them. Even genuinely loving responses from others will be seen as inadequate or even negative. The more intent they become on establishing a relationship, the more trouble 2s have recognizing boundaries. They may ask extremely personal questions about someone's finances, health, and sex life. They may also offer unsolicited advice and opinions. Mary is just not the right girl for you. If others have no particular needs or difficulties, 2s may begin to create them, often in unnecessary and meddlesome ways. I'll come over Saturday and take you to the grocery store. Then we'll come back and we'll clean your house together, and then we'll go to a movie. If others back off because they feel intruded on, 2s generally react by redoubling their solicitude. 2s have learned that they cannot express their needs and demands directly. They must do so indirectly, hoping that others will pick up the hints and repay them in various ways. Like 1s, 2s have a strong superego that is involved with judging what they must do to be loved, what counts for love from others, the quality of their self-sacrifice, and so forth. Assuming the position of rescuer leads 2s to being focusing their attention and efforts on more needy people, even what might be called desperate cases. Going to deeply damaged, incapacitated people is self-defeating if one is looking for a mature emotional response from them. And yet, this is what secretly emotionally needy twos do. In their need to be needed, they give to people who cannot repay their gift. In the words of a popular saying from the 12-step programs, twos are, quote, looking for an orange in a hardware store. If an average two becomes possessive, it is a sure sign that they are beginning to fear that others are losing interest in them or are about to leave them, possibly for a relationship with someone else. Possessiveness can be expressed in worrying about the other and in acting on all kinds of unacknowledged ulterior motives. To compensate for feeling unappreciated, low average twos may also take a patronizing or condescending attitude toward others, complaining about how much they have done or the expenses they have incurred for them, or both. Their real, as well as their exaggerated suffering, allows them to feel like martyrs who are overburdened by their sacrifices for others, although they may well overrate their efforts on others' behalf. Healthy twos do not talk much about their own problems. Lower to average to unhealthy twos talk about little else. Past operations, scars, traumatic experiences, and health scares of all sorts are paraded before others in an attempt to elicit signs of concern and love. Hypochondria can become part of the picture as a further bid for gratitude and sympathy. They may erupt in rashes, intestinal problems, or arthritis and other stress-related diseases. Okay.
Tim commented, he said, it seems like it'd be more difficult to identify public figures who are type 2s, at least more so than some other types, given that a lot of the typical 2 behaviors play out on an interpersonal level, unless the private life of the 2 is exposed in a scandal of the public sphere.
Right, yeah, I could see that. And I had a thought that went along with that, and it just went right out of my head. I can't think of a public figure right now that I would identify as a 2. And I was going to add another complication, what fell out of my head. The 2's role is the typical gender role in our patriarchal society. So often women will mistype as 2's, even though they're not 2's. But they have to be the 2 of their family or act in that capacity as helper or caretaker. That even happened to a guy that I did premarital counseling with. He was a nurse and mistyped as a 2, but he wasn't a 2. But just that kind of caretaking role had put him in that sort of, he was thinking in those terms instead of what he really was, I guess you might say, or thinking on a deeper level about it.
And the comment I had, I was thinking about it as you were describing, like the levels 1 through 9 of healthy to unhealthy, was that I can see myself experiencing multiple levels of health or unhealth in a day, depending on who I'm speaking to or which situation. Am I at home? Am I in public? So like you were describing traits that I can see in myself, in a very healthy sense, but then 30 minutes later, I would be way down at a 7 doing something, it just kind of depended on who I was with at that moment and what the situation was.
I would say we're probably all in the average ranges for the most part, and then, just in general, not like the people in this room, this is not an assessment, but most human beings are probably in that average range. And, when they've been sitting in meditation or whatever, they might slip up into healthy, but we don't often these are the Mother Teresas and the so forth and the so on. But I would say the same thing. It takes usually, in this book, I don't ever quote it, but it says if a tragedy occurs or a major life change, that can throw you down into the lower levels. So it usually takes some kind of trauma to really push you down into the furthest depths. Unless I see people with mental health issues down in those levels. So that will push you down.
I've been thinking of those levels as something like, I'm living as a 5 right now, you know? But then I was thinking there, you know, like there are certain people in my life that I can immediately become a 7 the second they're in the room with me. But I don't know that that's truly becoming a 7 or just that action coming out of me. But just thinking about like that health can kind of quickly deteriorate and go down just depending on the people that are suddenly around you.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. My health deteriorates rapidly when certain people are around. Yeah, I can, and I see it. Yeah, it just happened just the other day back at home. So it takes one visit. Okay, so stress and growth, areas of disintegration and reintegration. Okay, now it's time to talk about where a 2 goes when they are under stress and where they go when they are integrated. A 2 under stress becomes more like an 8. Rizzo and Hudson write, their usual indirectness shifts into a more frontal approach in which the average 2s confront people directly about their lack of response, complaining about not being given an expected term of endearment or sufficient appreciation. They begin to act out, threatening, domineering, controlling. So let's talk about the warning signs of severe mental health problems in 2s. I have another chart here that I marked. So here's some warning signs. Extreme tendencies towards self-deception, acting with a sense of delusional entitlement, episodes of manipulating and coercing others, episodes of obsessive love out of keeping with age or status, evidence of repressed aggression acted out inappropriately, physical symptoms of emotional problems, somatization. So here are the potential pathologies for 2s. Histrionic personality disorder, hypochondriasis, I think I said that right, somatization, eating disorders, serious coercive sexual behaviors, and stalking. So these are all the pathological, you know, when you're way down. You're not. This is not just your average. You know, you're having a bad day because so and so came over to the house. Those are the serious pathologies. And if there are 2s, actually, if there's anybody, any of your types, if you've taken the test, I recommend the Enneagram Thought of the Day. They often pull some of the wisdom from this book. So there's for each chapter, there's also a list of things to help you get healthy or be healthier. I don't usually quote those because that's kind of more of a, I guess, a pastoral care maybe sort of thing. So anyway, so I recommend that. Now, something more positive. When the 2 begins to grow, to get closer to their true essence, to be fully integrated, they become more like healthy 4s. Rizzo and Hudson write, integrating 2s gradually become acquainted and comfortable with the entire panoply? Did I say that right? Did I spell that right? The entire spectrum of feeling states available to them, including their secret needs and their darkest hatreds. This gives them the ability to know when and how to nurture themselves, as well as the self-knowledge to voice their needs and fears as they arise. Exploring modes of self-expression, music, art, dance, or simply keeping a private journal can be extremely helpful to 2s. So now we wrap it up. So how about some more good news 2s need to hear? The one and only person who can love us deeply, constantly, and under all circumstances is us. Our own essence is the source of love we seek, because it is an expression of divine love and therefore cannot be conditioned, withheld, or diminished. More profoundly, twos grow tremendously when they recognize that love is not a commodity that can be won, demanded, earned, or bestowed by someone else, or that can be given to someone else, because it is, in its highest and truest form, not a function of the ego. Love is not a poker chip or a bag of goodies that can be given or withheld. If the, quote, love we seek has these qualities, then it is not real love. We cannot will ourselves to love others or to love others. We cannot will ourselves to love ourselves or to love others. All we can do, paradoxically, is to recognize the presence of love in ourselves and others. When they remember their essential nature and the divine state that it mirrors, healthy twos are aware of the presence of love all around them. So there is quite literally nothing that they need to get from anyone, and nothing they can give. That is the two. Are there more questions or anything or comments? Maybe we'll just give them a minute and see if there's anything else. So essentially, the two recognizes that love is not something to be grasped, but I know a number of twos. I worked with one at the school, at the middle school, was the bookkeeper. Could not say no. I had her take the Enneagram to learn about it, just so that maybe that would be a first step in being able to say no to being helpful. She was she needed like 9 of these worry stones. Just sat all around, and maybe some candles and some incense as well. Just so uptight because she was so overburdened. So she had all these notes all over the desk to do this, and this. I felt bad just asking to, make a library purchase or something, because it had to go through her. She had to sign something else. I know the twos that give unsolicited advice, and oh my goodness, talk about me slipping down into my unhealthy levels when somebody gives me unsolicited advice. It is rage on, flame on. It's just, I have never been able to or needed to really incorporate an unsolicited piece of advice. I am much more likely to incorporate something if I go to you and say, look at this, or think about this. So I probably have sometimes the most problems with, or at least the least understanding of twos at times, because of course that's my area of growth. And if I'm not growing and becoming more two-like, then I'm becoming the opposite. Just like, what are you talking about? Why are you telling me this? Why are you crying over this thing that shouldn't be an emotionally dramatic thing? I don't get it. But that works both ways too. Like the two is like, why are you so stony and cold-hearted? So I had a two tell me once that I liked cats because I was a cold person. So.
Not that you're a cold person.
Patrick, get out. Yeah, the dog is the ultimate. The cats are probably the 5 on the Enneagram. they're aloof. And,
maybe that's why I was there, the two that you want.
And the dogs. Oh, they're all twos. All twos. Love me, love me, love me, love me, love me. Let me help you here. Let me bring you let me chew up your shoe for you and bring it to you. Yeah. So twos definitely. The cats there. Some of them, I think Neville the cat could be an 8, but they're definitely, as a breed, as a species, as a creature, they're very 5-like, reptilian. Okay, well, next week we'll pick up the 3. I have a few anecdotes about those too. There's a lot of 3s. This country could be considered a 3. I think I said that before. This drive for being number 1, being great or whatever, that's a very 3 tendency. So that's something worth looking at and worth transcending or getting rid of, because you realize it all is great.